Hello, everybody. It's Sami, and I just wanted to dive in really quick and make a correction from last week's episode. I was being ignorant, and thanks to our amazing editor, Lewis, who's in Barcelona, he told me I made an error on saying there's no FDA in Europe, which was ignorant on my behalf. It's actually called the EMA, which is European Medicines Agency, and they do pre-approved medications and whatnot in Europe. Thanks so much, Lewis, for letting me know and correcting me. I hope we can continue on, and let's dive into this week's episode.
I'm glad it wasn't me. Haha.
This is the Just My Type podcast.
Here we go. Hello, around the block and around the world. This is where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. Representing type 2, my name is Dobie Maxwell. Representing type 1, the vivacious, effervescent, and always in the know, Sami Parker. We'll get to Sami in seconds, but first, this episode of Just My Type podcast is brought to you by the Diabetes app, a free social community app that brings together both type 1 and type 2 diabetics, plus their supporters find community resources and Sami and me on the Diabetes app. What's up, Sami? You're a hoot, kid.
Me and Dobie decided we like using the words, hoot, you are a character, and you are something else. So I appreciate that
Something else. Yes. Elizabeth, our queen of the pod squad, she is a character. You are a hoot. I am something else. And we have a wonderful episode today. We're going to have more guests in your computer, in your phone, wherever you're listening to this than you can stand. Today's topic is Diabetic Dynasty. I love this idea.
Oh, yes. And we have Michelle and Tyler on, and you might know them as the Inspiring Girls on Instagram, and they are here to join us and just to talk a little bit about their family and all their diagnosis stories and how they've all dealt with diabetes. So hello, you two.
Hi
guys.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
We appreciate having you. It's like a whole hee-haw gang here.
Yeah, we're part of that 100% club, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Well, your guys' story is fascinating. We usually like to get people's diagnosis stories to get everybody on the same page, and I'm sure you got good ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll go first since my diagnosis happened first.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old, and I was actually in the hospital. I have also something called PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, and that is another autoimmune disease. But
Amen, sister. I got it too.
Good clubs we can be a part of.
Yeah.
But I was getting surgery for that, and I was in my pre-op, and they came in and was like to my parents, because I was only 13, well, you didn't disclose that she was diabetic, so we're not prepared to do her surgery today. And my parents were like, she's not diabetic. And my sugar at the time was just about 500. And so they basically admitted me to learn about diabetes instead of my surgery, and did my surgery about a week later after I was on insulin and this whole new life, basically. So it was like this whirlwind of medical things going on with me at once.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's overwhelming, isn't it? Especially at that young age.
Yes, it was. And I had,
We were like the same age.
yeah. And I think that happens a lot. Like I've met a lot of parents online and stuff. It seems like it's like toddlers, teenagers, and like 20s. It seems to be a common age,
Yeah.
I think.
No, I definitely think it is too. And it's hard because that's a time period where you're like kind of growing and going through puberty. So it's like, okay, are they, losing weight and just extra thirsty because they're growing and need more nutrients right now? Or, and so like you kind of don't know. You're just like, oh, I'm like, getting taller, getting thinner. The life is great.
Exactly. And the life of a 13-year-old girl is kind of like hard enough at that age anyway to add on.
It's awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else in your class at school, did they have diabetes by chance?
There was two kids that I didn't really know well until after I was diagnosed with diabetes that also had diabetes.
Mhm.
And one of them actually ended up going to the same college as me too. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say, like, I didn't know a lot of people before, but after, it kind of opens up your world to more people. I went to like a diabetic children's camp or teen camp over the summer. So I met even more people with diabetes. I have to say I'm not really much of a camper. That's what I learned from that experience. But, I did meet some people.
I'm not either. So.
Now, when I was at summer camp, we used to tell scary stories around the fire. Having your diabetic diagnosis story, that's scarier than any ghost story I could think of. You could tell stories to the counselor and scare them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then Tyler, you were diagnosed way later, right?
I wasn't diagnosed until 22. Yeah.
Yeah, after we were married,
Yep.
actually.
Yeah. No, we were married at this point. I was 22. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny, they say if couples are married a long enough time, they look like each other. You guys early on said, we're not going to look like each other. We're going to get the same disease. So we can really be in love. You can
Somehow become.
want to share needles? Oh, you're so romantic.
No, I'm kind of like, I hope my boyfriend gets it. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding.
Well, it's
Totally
kind of
kidding.
weird because like diabetes is like how we met at the same point, even though he wasn't diabetic. I actually went into DKA in college, and we had a friend who was like our mutual friend. Like he was my neighbor, and he was friends with Tyler. And Tyler had a car. So when I almost died, he called Tyler to drive me to the hospital, and then he ended up staying with me until I was discharged. So that's kind of how we met, was diabetes and everything.
What was your cause of DKA for that time?
So it was actually because my college fridge I had bought on Facebook Marketplace, and it was not keeping my insulin cold enough. So I could not get my blood sugar down no matter how much insulin I was taking. And my long-acting insulin, because I was on shots at that time, was just not working.
Oh, got it. Dang, that's really tough.
Mm.
Wow. So then when you guys were kind of going through that and after you were married, Tyler, did you just have all the symptoms? And then Michelle, you were like, okay, I think you have it. Or how did that work?
I was trying to lose weight, so I was trying to drink, more water. I was working an office job. I wasn't as active as I was. And I thought like, oh, I'm really thirsty all the time. Like my body must be getting used to the water that I'm drinking. So I must just be thirsty all the time, which makes no sense now. So I was, doing that. It would get to the point where before we went to bed, I would put a giant thing of water in the freezer. So I would be like, all right, I know that when I get up at 3 a.m, because I knew I was going to get up at 3 a.m, have to go to the bathroom, and then have to get something to drink, I would have nice cold water. And I didn't think anything was wrong with that. Wasn't really talking to her a lot about it, because I'm just like, this is just a normal thing people go through.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we were moving into a new apartment. I was sweating profusely, bringing like one box up the stairs. I'd have to sit down for like 5 minutes after. And then she goes, let's take your sugar. And her meter couldn't read it. So we were like, all right, let's bring you in. So I wasn't in DKA. I avoided that, luckily. But they told me, they're like, yep, you definitely have diabetes.
So crazy.
How did it hit you, Tyler? When you heard that, did it shock you?
Oh, God, yeah. I was just like, no. I'm like, no, there's no way. But he was just like, yeah, you definitely have diabetes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Get out of town.
And it took me a couple of days to hit it, but I was just like, maybe they're right. I don't know.
It's like, so was not funny at the time. But now it's like, honestly, it's like one of those comical things that you're probably just like, you guys are joking. Like, I'm married to a diabetic. Like, no.
So you're saying there's a chance I have diabetes, right? Like,
yeah.
Is it April Fool's Day? No, maybe it's true.
Yeah, it's wild. And then you guys had Emma, and Emma also has it.
Yeah, so at about 12 months old, like she was just before she hit 13 months, we had just bought her, like we just had her first birthday party and everything, so everyone bought her size 2T clothes, which is what she was in at the time. And I had just started a new job, and I get a call from my mother-in-law. Sorry, she's very vocal.
I think Emma's thinking back to that day, and she's like, oh, heck no.
No, not right now. But no, I get a call from my mother-in-law, who was the person watching Emma. And she was like, I need new clothes for her because none of this fits her. And I was like, well, we just got it. What do you mean it doesn't fit her? And she was like, it's all way too big. Like, I can't even keep the pants up. And I was like, what? Like, it shouldn't be too big. If anything, it would be too small.
Yeah.
And so that night I kind of started paying more attention to what was going on. And probably about 2 hours after she fell asleep, her whole crib was like wet. Like she had peed through her whole diaper, which had just been changed 2 hours ago. And I noticed that she really didn't want a lot of food, but she just wanted her bottle. So I took her sugar when she fell asleep, which I had to look up how to take a baby sugar because I was like, it can't be the same, right? And she was reading 560 on my meter, and we brought her to the hospital, and they thought I was crazy when we arrived because I was like, she's diabetic, but she hasn't been diagnosed yet. And they're like, how do you know that? Like, and I was like, I took her sugar, and they're like, why would you take her sugar? And
you're like, let me tell you, we both are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I was like, I know she's diabetic, and they I feel like they just did not believe me. They looked at me like I was crazy. And then the check-in nurse took her sugar, and it was just reading high on their meter, which meant that she was now over 600. Ooh. And then they started paying attention to me and listening to everything I said. And they diagnosed her with 650
Wow.
at that age. So then we were admitted into the hospital. They started her on IV, insulin. And at that point, like, which I didn't know because I was diagnosed at 13, but toddler diabetes is different. You're on diluted insulin, so you have to mix the insulin and the saline because they're on such small amounts. It was just crazy. Like, basically, before we got her on the insulin pump, she was having to eat so much carbs just so we could dose her with insulin. Like, it was crazy. Like, a world that I've been in diabetes world at this point for 15 years, and she still shocked me.
That's crazy.
Well, it shocks me. I've never heard of anybody that young being diagnosed before.
Yeah.
Is that a record? Is it common?
We actually, so I didn't know, like, when we talked to her PCP, it's something I've been afraid of, like, since she was born. But her PCP was like, kids don't get diagnosed until at least the age of 2. Don't worry about it till then. And I was like, okay, like listening to a doctor, but thank God I checked it myself. But no, we've met so many people with kids who are about Emma's age or now older, but diagnosed at the same age as Emma, you know, who have gone through this too. Like, we have like 2 really good friends that I talk to basically every day, and both of their kids were diagnosed almost the same week of age as Emma. Like, crazy.
So crazy. And that's just like so difficult to have, because it's like you're not only worrying about you, and then Tyler's worrying about Tyler, and now you guys also both have to worry about Emma. It's just, it's like a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, I have to say, though, you know, I think she has definitely got us more in check with our own sugars, because now we're like, we have to be good so that she has good role models.
Yeah.
We talk about diabetes burnout a lot. What if both of you get diabetes burnout and then Emma is feeling down? And that could be, you know, luck of the draw. But if you're all 3 on a downstroke, that's going to be an unpleasant day, is it not?
Oh, yeah. And we've had those days where it's just like, you know, it like feels like it piles up because, like, you know, Tyler goes to work and then I'm home with Emma and I'm taking care of her diabetes and taking care of my diabetes. And it's like, if we're both having a bad day, or we're having a day where we all, like, both of us need to change our insulin pumps or Dexcoms, it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
And even just the symphony of, I call it the symphony of Dexcom alarms just go off in our house just constantly. It's a high or a low, or somebody needs to change out, or somebody's sensor's expiring 24 hours. It's just nonstop. And it's to the point where I can hear one out in the world and I'm just like, oh, that's not me. It's another diabetic out in the wild. But yeah, it's a lot of noises at the end of the day.
Yeah. Dobie, the Dexcom, which is, sorry, any CGM. I just mean Dexcom particularly. The sound of it, it's like a but you can like make it do any sounds. So if you have like multiple going off, it's just like,
What was that sound again?
it's like, or I don't know.
Just like hearing it go.
It literally just
It's just
keeps on
funny when you do
going like
that.
at night, and it's really loud.
And probably annoying.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's really loud. Yeah, and we have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yes. And Emma, she deals with a lot.
She also has autism. She was diagnosed in September with autism. So just about a year and 3 months after her diabetes diagnosis, she also was diagnosed with autism, which somehow also it relates to diabetes. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's already so hard because it's like, it's very impressive and such a testimony to you guys as parents, because that is like a lot to keep in check and always be worrying about. So I applaud you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy how, you know, you don't think these things would be related, but they come back to each other and makes everything like a little bit harder.
Yeah.
That's why we want to communicate, because I think this whole thing is difficult as it is. And some people in your maybe I've never heard of anybody in your situation. So like Sami said, kudos to you. But maybe someone's listening and saying, man, you know, I thought I was the only one. It's just nice to see, well, someone else is going through the same thing in that community, and someone else having problems in a way makes your own problems feel better, even if you don't know that person. It's like, at least I'm not alone.
Exactly. That's kind of why I started like our Instagram blog and everything. It was like, as soon as I posted about Emma's diabetes, it was like all of a sudden people from all over the world were like, hey, I have this happen too. Like, if you need someone to talk to, like, you know, give me a call. Like, it was just amazing to find other moms who had just gone through a diagnosis like that, or could, you know, help me when I had questions and I didn't want to be, you know, the annoying person calling her nurses and doctors all the time. Like, it was, you know, plus, honestly, I think sometimes moms and parents just know what to do. When you have like a toddler, it's not necessarily always by book.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think with like diabetes, it can be such a lot of my friends like believed at first, like it's just, oh, so you just take insulin for this amount of carb. I was like, no, there's a lot more moving pieces. Like, but it's not based on a textbook. Does the autism affect the diabetes management at all or no?
So the hardest part is one of her things that kind of told us that she had autism to begin with was that she would fixate on objects. Like when it first started, it was actually on K-cups. Like we couldn't leave the house without her having a pocketbook filled with K-cups because she needed them with her, or it was like traumatic for her. And then all of a sudden we were like, oh, it's not K-cups anymore, but it switched to her insulin pump. And it was terrible because she would just pick at her Omnipod or T-Slim constantly until she would finally get it off and could just hold it. Like, and that's all she wanted was to just hold her Omnipod or her T-Slim cannula, and that was it. And it was really difficult. We end up now having to constantly be switching between insulin pumps because when she starts fixating on her pod, the switch kind of gets her to stop for a little bit. And then when she starts fixating on the cannula of her T-Slim, we have to switch it back to the Omnipod, and it's a lot, but at least it's something that's starting to work for her, but it has been a struggle.
We sure commend you for what you're doing. Our special guests, Michelle and Tyler and Emma too. We're gonna take a quick break right now. She is Sami Parker. My name is Dobie Maxwell. This is a Just My Type Diabetic Podcast. We'll be right back. Hey, Sami, you'll never guess what I got in the mail.
Let me guess, Dobie, an eviction notice?
How did you know? But that and also a surprise package filled with IQ bars.
No way. I love those bars. They're plant-powered protein bars, and they're low carb, low sugar, so they don't even spike my blood sugar.
You'll never guess that they're good for the brain, too, with 6 brain nutrients, and we all know I need all the help I can get.
I'm shocked you knew that there were 6, but Dobie, seriously, you should eat them all. I love them. They are gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Crazy, right?
I think I might actually go eat one right now. They have so many flavors, like a new flavor for every mood.
That's right, Dobie, and our listeners can go get themselves their very own package of IQ bars today at www.eatiqbar.com and use the code JMT15 and they get 15% off their purchase.
If we didn't have the rest of the episode to do, I'd do it now. The Diabetes app is an online community platform that was created to help people living with diabetes find support and information in one spot.
And on the Diabetes app, you can join groups and connect with other people all over the world who are also living with diabetes. I mean, for me, whenever I have a bad day, I find myself scrolling through the mental wellness group, just to reassure myself that I'm not alone.
The Diabetes app has a resource section where you can find articles, recipes, tips, and tricks for managing your diabetes. Download the Diabetes app today and connect with us right on the app. Back we are. This episode is the Diabetic Dynasty. Our very special guests, Michelle, Tyler, and Emma. Sami, this is a fantastic find that you made. This is fascinating stuff.
Well, they're great. They were so open to it too. So we are so excited. When I talked to them on FaceTime, I was like, this is awesome. A match made in heaven.
Well, cool. Now we have a special segment right now.
Yes.
Sami, I'll let you lead it.
Okay. So I think we decided, right, Dobie, on what's your favorite family memory?
Yes, we're talking about families here, but it's a Diabetic Dynasty family. I'm going to let you guys go. My family situation is off the charts in another way, so I'll back it up on this. So you have happy memories of your family.
You want me to go first, or Michelle and Tyler? Do you guys want to go first?
Michelle and Tyler, go first. Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say my favorite family memory would probably be Disney with Emma. It has been magical. We actually went right before everything kind of shut down with the pandemic. So it was kind of like our last normalcy, I guess. And it was also before Emma was diagnosed with diabetes. So it was a good travel experience of something that, our supplies, but not having to also worry about Emma's and everything else, not that stress. But like particularly, there was like one time where, we waited in line because at that age, she was about 10 months old. And the only movie she had really watched was Frozen. So I was like, she is going to meet these princesses, which is like a 3-hour waiting experience with a 10-month-old. But when we got to that line, Anna got down on the floor with her and was playing peekaboo and everything. And it was just like her smile was like, is this real? I've seen you on TV. It was beautiful. That was my happiest moment, I think. And it was it's kind of like sad to think about now because like now it's like stressful like when you go on travel.
Yeah.
Like it's like I feel like diabetes sometimes can take away some things like the stress-free traveling and being able to wait in a 3-hour line without worrying about low sugar, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking back to that memory.
Michelle, we're going to plug ourselves. We have a whole episode about traveling with diabetes. So if you have some time, you want to listen to it, and anybody else listening to this episode too,
Yeah.
check that episode out because you bring up a very valid point. Now, where do you guys live, and how far did you have to travel to get to Disney to take Emma?
So we live in New Hampshire, and then we went to the Florida Disney. So it was about a 2.5-hour plane ride. We are not going to be driving over a day with a toddler.
No way.
But Disney actually has some great resources for like disability cards and everything. So if anyone's traveling to Disney, definitely look into the things they have for guests with disabilities because diabetes does actually count.
Yeah.
We call it playing the D card around here. We're going to send you guys a D card. Sammy came up with this great idea. So you guys can play, just pull out your D card.
Exactly.
You're like, I have a D card. They're like, what's that?
That'll help you in some future.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, it's the diabetes card. Tyler, what's your favorite memory?
Oh, but it's actually from that trip, but a different experience. We waited in a line because, we wanted to get the picture with her and Mickey. And the Mickey that we had was great. He, got down on the floor with her, and he played peekaboo with her, which at the time was her favorite thing in the entire world to do. We would do that for hours on end and get the same crazy ecstatic giggle. So just having that, and again, I think it was, it is similar to, what Michelle talked about. It was the trip before the world and our health went in a downward spiral. So it was just a nice memory to look back on.
Yeah.
I still like peekaboo.
Yeah. You'll still get a chuckle out of me every time I play.
Nobody plays with me anymore, but if they would, I like it.
Dobie, we can start playing on the show. I'm gonna start covering the camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go peekaboo.
So I'll have Emma as my teammate.
Yeah.
What was your favorite memory, Sammy? Your favorite family memory?
My favorite family memory, I couldn't say it's like one particular one, but I just love being, which is gonna sound corny, but I love being like with my parents and my sister and me, whether it could be like on a hike or like at dinner, but it's just like fun because not always. Sometimes, we'll all be on our like edge and we're all like, feisty, and I'm like, ooh. But majority of the time, it's always a good time. And I like love being able to just have like the family time.
In the shiz, as Sammy would say. Well, see, now this is so good that Michelle and Tyler are together to raise Emma in this situation. Now, comedians, if you guys didn't know Tyler and Michelle, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I would travel. Most comedians, I call them dented cans. Horrible family life. My dad was a biker. My mom abandoned our family when I was 5 months old. I was raised by my grandparents. And my father remarried, and I would bounce back and forth between my grandparents and my siblings. I never lived with them as a kid. So I have an older brother, older sister, and a younger half-brother. And my sister didn't talk to me for 20 years, not exaggerating, 20 years. My half-brother and I didn't talk for 30 years. And we had a family reunion. I wrote to all of them. And I said, look, we're going to die at some point. I haven't talked to my sister 20 years. All I'm asking is we just sit down at a table one time for one meal and just say whatever we have to say. And if we never talk to each other after that, just one time as adults to get together. And we did it. And it was very awkward at first. And then it opened up and one thing led to another. And for the past few years, we've been spending holidays together. And it's like, Stevie Wonder can see again. It's the most pleasant memory. And people say, oh, I haven't talked to my siblings in years. And so it's an inspiration. And I'm going to write a book about it just because I think it's huge with people that have been estranged. So I'm not trying to top anybody. I know it's not a diabetic related thing, but that's my happy memory.
That's awesome.
That's very sweet, Dobie.
It is.
Yeah.
Sammy, once again, the episodes fly by. It's always a treat, especially when we have good guests, and we certainly did. Thanks to Michelle and Tyler and Emma, too, for being part of our show. We've got a question of the pod, which we do with everyone. Michelle, Tyler, who would like to ask the question of the pod?
I'll do it. So my question would be, does anyone else have people in the family with diabetes?
Yes. And again, you can find Michelle and Tyler at Inspiring the Girls. I correct myself because I said the Inspiring Girls, and it's at Inspiring the Girls on Instagram.
Are they on the TikTok, Sammy?
Are you guys on the TikTok?
We are, but not very often.
Okay.
We just joke about how the old people always put the in the song. You got the diabetes? Are you on the TikTok?
Yeah. But again, please rate, review, and subscribe. to Just My Type Podcast. You can find us on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Just My Type Pod _, Facebook at Just My Type Pod, and the hashtag Just My Type Pod. And again, Michelle and Tyler are at Inspiring the Girls on Instagram. We are so thankful for you guys coming on again, and thank you for showing us what a diabetes dynasty looks like.
Thank you guys for having us. We had so much fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys. Sammy, put the cherry on the sundae.
Say la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.